Hey guys, so today I'm going to be doing a quick video on blood cell development, and we're going to be talking about how the blood cells I talked about in the previous video came to be. So in general order, all blood cells come from something called a hematopoietic stem cell. These stem cells give rise to two groups of progenitor cells. They are the common myeloid progenitors and the common lymphoid progenitors. Then these progenitor cells develop into something called blast type cells, which further mature into cyte type cells. So if you ever look at a cell name and it has the word blast in it or the word cyte in it, you know kind of which order that came in. So blasts usually come before cytes and are the more immature versions. So we have our hematopoietic stem cell over here in our diagram, and it develops into two types of progenitor cells. And then those progenitor type cells, depending on what kind of hormones act on them or what kind of cytokines act on them, they develop into the cells that we are familiar with. So let's look at the common myeloid progenitors. So stem cell became a common myeloid progenitor. Now this has a couple different ways it can go. And the ways you can remember what common myeloid progenitors produce is the acronym GEM. So G stands for granulocytes, E is erythrocytes, M is monocytes, and the other M is megakaryocytes. Granulocytes are those white blood cells with the specific granules I talked about in the last video. Erythrocytes are your red blood cells. Monocytes develop into macrophages, and megakaryocytes produce platelets. So how do you get a common myeloid progenitor to turn into an erythrocyte or megakaryocyte or myeloblast or a thrombocyte? So let's go through the pathways one by one. So our stem cell becomes our myeloid progenitor. Then our myeloid progenitor, if it's acted on by the hormone thrombopoietin, you get a megakaryocyte. Then that megakaryocyte creates those small blebs which we talked about previously, and those form your thrombocytes, which are your platelets. Or if this common myeloid progenitor gets acted on by erythropoietin, a hormone that we're all very familiar with, erythropoietin is produced by the kidneys and causes red blood cell development. So erythrocytes get produced when erythropoietin acts on a common myeloid progenitor. And finally, we have granulocyte, monocyte, colony stimulating factor. So that's exactly what it does. It stimulates the common myeloid progenitor to produce this myeloblast cell, and then this can differentiate into granulocytes or monocytes. So granulocytes are those white blood cells, basophils, eosinophils, and neutrophils, and monocytes will develop into macrophages. There's also the common lymphoid progenitor route, which the stem cell can take, and this leads to the production of T and B cells. And the important hormone or cytokine here to remember is interleukin 7. So if interleukin 7 acts on your common lymphoid progenitor, you're going to get a T or a B cell. Moving on, let's talk about two important cell types and how they came to be, and these are the ones that classes usually put emphasis on. So how do you create a red blood cell step by step? So the acronym to remember in the steps in which red blood cell forms is PB-POR. So P, proerythroblast, B, basophilic erythroblast, P, polychromatophilic erythroblast, orthochromatic erythroblast, reticulocyte, and erythrocyte. So those are the steps, and they're outlined in this diagram here. Now the important thing to know about each of these steps is that the basophilic erythroblast is when you start getting the development of hemoglobin. Proerythroblasts do not have hemoglobin in them. So hemoglobin begins to build more and more in red blood cells until it's around 30% hemoglobin in the mature erythrocyte. Then another thing to remember is that the orthochromatophilic erythroblast is the step when the nucleus is ejected. So reticulocytes, the immature erythroblasts that you'll see sometimes in the blood, even though they're pretty rare, 1% of blood cells are reticulocytes, they have no nucleus, but they do have ribosomes. So that's one major difference between a reticulocyte and an erythrocyte. You will not see ribosomes. They have also been ejected in the erythrocyte. Next, we're going to talk a bit about granulocytopoiesis. So this is how you form those white blood cells known as granulocytes. Basophils, eosinophils, neutrophils are all formed through these steps, and I'm just going to outline them very quickly. So you have a myeloblast, promyelocyte, myelocyte, metamyelocyte, band cell, and then mature granulocyte. The only important thing to remember here really is that myelocytes are the step in development in which you get specific granule production. So this is the step where you can tell apart a basophil, eosinophil, or neutrophil because they will have different granules inside of them that can be differentiative. Alright, so I hope this video gave you a little bit of a heads up on blood cell development. Thanks for watching. See you in the next video.